Hello, welcome to another Tweedy Outdoors video. I have just been dropped off at the village of Liddington. There's its church behind me, and I'm going to walk a section of the Ridgeway. Other than the drone of the M4, quite a nice section of path here. Something about these tunnels under motorways, often very grim places. Somebody's really gone to town on the graffiti there. I guess in places like this it's sort of harming nobody. Nobody ever comes here. The grass is very wet. It's been raining on and off most of the day. Didn't bring my gaiters, and also didn't wax my boots recently, so already feeling a bit of ingress, is that the right word? A bit of water coming through. And back in that direction, a wonderful view down to Swindon and the M4. Can't say I would particularly recommend walking along this road. There have been quite a few big lorries, cars going rather fast along here, but it is nice to be on what is apparently another original section of the Ridgeway that the National Trail no longer follows. Does that have the distinction of being the single biggest Ridgeway National Trail sign on the Ridgeway National Trail? 2 crossings of the M4 in one day. Terrible camera work time. Probably terrible audio levels as well. It's another very large Ridgeway sign. Finally here then, off the road and onto a bit of the Ridgeway that is actually a track. And the views have opened up after that little climb. Charlbury Hill over there, Charlbury. The sun's come out at least a bit. Hopefully you can hear some birds tweeting as well. Pretty example of hawthorn blossom over there. I think that's just hawthorn blossom. Pink and white. Yeah, Ridgeway's gone a bit upmarket since last time I walked it. That looks like some sort of, what is it, a hot dog van or some such. Luxury al fresco seating. That's a bit macabre. There is what looks like a giant bathtub here, and something has met a grisly end in there. Ugh. I don't know if you can get a sense of this with my big fat head in the way, but this section of the Ridgeway feels sort of oddly manicured. The edges of the track are very sort of straight and quite well maintained, and it's a relatively even surface underfoot. Moody sort of weather. I'm sure it's going to rain at some point. Fantastic dwelling here. Look at that. Obviously some stories to be told there, I suspect. Sorry if this footage is a bit grainy. Just like last time when I walked the Ridgeway, this was incredibly tempting, but the bit that puts me off is the down the hill, because that's going to mean also up the hill. Horse box parking. That's odd. It's another very narrow section of the Ridgeway National Trail here. I wonder if this has again been deliberately managed to try and restrict cars and vans coming down at this point. Somebody put a little crown on that signpost there.
The Ridgeway is lined with a number of ancient monuments, including Wayland Smithy here, which is believed to be about 5,500 years old. Long barrows are some of the oldest structures we have in Britain. They're 1,000 years older than the stone circles at Avebury or Stonehenge. It's presumably from these monuments along the route that the typically cited age of the Ridgeway, which is about 5,000 or 6,000 years old, is inferred. There is a sort of chicken and egg problem here. Was the Ridgeway simply joining up the dots of all these important sites which already existed, or were these monuments intentionally built close to the Ridgeway because the route itself had some significance? It's clear that this custom of long barrow building didn't emerge independently in multiple locations by coincidence. There was obviously movement around the country to spread this culture and these ideas. So I think there's a very good case to be made that some route, roughly following along the lines of what we now know as the Ridgeway, was in use before Wayland Smithy was built. It's likely that settlements along that route grew to be more prosperous and significant because of the trade and exchange of ideas that the Ridgeway facilitated. Ultimately, that culminated in the building of these monuments. I think the Ridgeway must have come first, though.
First glimpse of Uffington Hill, is it, or White Horse Hill over there? Some lovely bird song coming from that hawthorn tree. Progress update. I suppose I started somewhere around here, Liddington, walked up to nearly Liddington Castle, joined the Ridgeway around about here, just before it crossed the M4. I've been past Wayland, Smithy, just about to get to Uffington Castle and the White Horse. White Horse Hill and Uffington Castle. It's got some lovely ditches. Who doesn't love a trig point, eh? Uffington Castle, it is probably early Iron Age. The excavations that have been done here have dated it to about the 7th or 8th century BC. It seems like a mere baby when we compare it to Wayland Smithy back there. Only half as old. That was already ancient when this construction was laid out. It's probably more famous for the White Horse that is on the hill next to it. Of course, as we know with all of these chalk hill figures, it's never any use standing on top of the hill and trying to get a decent view of it. You've got to be down in the valley or on some opposite hill. A little bit of swirling lines there, can get a little bit of a sense of some of the shape. And perhaps down there on, is that little mount called something like Dragon Hill? Headley did a wonderful video about the Uffington White Horse. Is that going to be in that corner? I'll stick a link to it over there in that corner. Maybe a slightly better view of it. Big fat finger time sort of along the brow of the hill there from this angle. I think the best viewing point, probably that Dragon Hill down there, but it's started to rain now and I'm not sure I can be bothered to walk all the way down there, knowing I'll have to go back up the hill again. Just wanted to provide some visual documentary of the fact that it's raining a bit now. I've even put on these waterproof trousers. I hardly ever use these. I bought them months ago and I've been carrying them around on all these trips, and I think it's the first time I've actually put them on outdoors. I'm not feeling very tweedy right now. Surprisingly fierce now, the rain. I think the promise was just of light showers, but I suppose on the plus side did hold off until now, so maybe the clouds were just saving it all up for one big burst. What a lovely ditch. Terrible camera work time. I've decided to set up my tent here. The weather's really kind of closed in and don't really get the sense it's going to get better anytime soon, so I think I'm just going to stay put for the rest of this evening. I'm just kind of by the side of a field here, well away from any ancient monuments. I do have a tarp with me, but partly I don't really have great options for somewhere to string it up. I suppose I could just about manage those fence posts, but they're a little bit short. And also I'm enjoying the pathos of just sitting here in the rain. I'm actually perfectly dry on the inside, fully covered head to toe in waterproof, so I'll be fine. Tonight's dinner, something really, really simple. What I'm making is more like the traditional Japanese breakfast: rice and miso soup. I've got some instant rice that all I need to do is pour some boiling water into, and I've got some dried ingredients that I can use to make a miso soup. They're not going to stay dry for long in this weather. All I really need to do is bring 1 billy can of water to the boil. I thought I would go back to using the BCB again. I think I remember this thing did reasonably well in wet conditions. I almost feel it's a bit ridiculous filling up the billy can with water. I could just sort of leave it out for a few minutes and it would fill up with rain. So I have these 2 sachets of, I think they're meant to make kind of rice balls, onigiri or amasubi. Onigiri it says, and they each need, well, not a lot of water, 60 millilitres or so. Is this actually going to light in these conditions, this Fire Dragon fuel? Yep, that's a go up. Hopefully the billy can on top will keep that relatively dry. I thought I could talk you through my dried ingredients while that's doing its thing. This is koya tofu, which is freeze-dried tofu. And these little bits here are, I think it's also freeze-dried, but it's that abarage, that thin, fried and then now dried tofu as well. So that adds a bit of protein, I suppose. This is kombu, I forget, what do we call that? Is that kelp? And these are shiitake. In fact, I think I could probably put the shiitake in now, because they will help to create a sort of stock. So the kombu, that will make a stock, and the shiitake. Delighted with that. It's just getting on with it and doing its thing, despite the rain, despite the wind. What would be the perfect accompaniment to rice and miso soup, do you think? Of course, I have with me some Gevrey Chambertin. This is a 2020 vintage. Generally, thus far, I don't think I've had a great time with 2020 vintages of Burgundy, but it seems sort of fitting on this occasion. First of all, I had it at home, but also, I think it was 2020 when I finished the Ridgeway, the final section. I think I started doing the walk in sections, sort of 2019, a day at a time. So something seems fitting that roughly round about the time I was slogging away, completing my walk along the Ridgeway, the grapes that make this wine were on the vine. Well, it's a little bit green. Much nicer on the palate. It's warming, rounded, nice and soft, sort of silty, sandy kind of tannins at the end. There's a good burst of fruit there. Yeah, that's pretty lovely. It's going to get watered down. Leaving this glass out. I shall have to just pour small glasses each time. Gevrey Chambertin in the rain. Brilliant. I'll show you how these things work. It's a bit like one of those camping meals. They're sort of dehydrated, whatever they are, freeze-dried camping meals. There's a strip to tear off at the top. Pull off this strip here, and then it shows you a red line with a sort of transparent panel. So I think that is an indicator of where you pour the water up to. Because on the back it says 59 millilitres. There is no way I can measure out 59 millilitres. I don't think we quite got to a rolling boil, but it's good enough for me. Apparently these rice sachet things work even with cold water. You just have to leave it for longer. So probably do. Not very precise. So they can both sit for 15 minutes or so. Might as well put all my other bits in the miso soup now. Just pour all that in. Give that a bit of a mix around. And all of that stuff will rehydrate pretty easily just sitting in that relatively hot water. Final touch to that, some miso. I took a little bit out of a bigger container, put it in this little jam jar. Mix that in. Not sure I need the whole lot. Cheers. Nice. Full of umami. Koyo tofu. It's a fascinating spongy kind of texture to it. Rain has died down a bit, which is nice. Let's see if the shiitake is edible. A little bit on the chewy side, but it'll do. Perhaps it's just naive optimism, but I actually think it's clearing in that direction a bit. 15 minutes or so have elapsed. I think I'm supposed to sort of tear off these side tabs or side splits as well. And then there's some further, how's your Japanese? There's some further instructions here. Perhaps I'll just sort of squeeze it out the top. It's not going to look very elegant, but that's what it looks like. It's got sort of bits in it. I don't know. There's probably more shiitake there and some dried vegetables and stuff. Oh, good. I left the oh dear. Quite nice. Rice is a little bit al dente around the edges, but I'm sure it's fine. It's a final course. A couple of sausage rolls. Despite the terrible weather, I think I'm actually having a pleasant time here. I have some Gevrey Chambertin. I quite enjoyed my strange rice and miso soup, and now sausage roll. The birds are tweeting. I'm in a meadow full of buttercups. If I'm not very much mistaken, we might actually see at least a tiny bit of pink sky, some vague semblance of a sunset. Terrible camera work time. There's at least some blue sky there. Pink clouds. I think that might have been almost it in terms of sunset interest. Still a bit of, I don't know, pink cloud here and there. Sitting here trying to keep a relatively low profile. I can hear some voices off in the distance. It is starting to get dark now, and and if the rain didn't put people off earlier, then hopefully the imminent dark will. It's about 9:40 now. I think sunset was half an hour ago, so I look a bit like the Emperor from Star Wars. Not too cold once we've got the waterproofs on. I'm enjoying the Gevrey Chambertin. And just being outdoors. It's a bit inclement now. I might try and get inside the tent. Starting to suspect I might have brought an inadequate tent for the weather conditions. Well, I've climbed inside the tent now, and it's gone 10 o'clock, but there is a little bit of post-sunset sky. Sort of warm in here. It is still quite windy outside, so there's obviously some movement of air is sort of chilling things down a bit, and my feet ended up quite wet. I didn't bring a spare pair of socks. Not that you need to know these details. I think that's probably going to be it for this evening. There will be a walk tomorrow morning back into wherever it is I'm finishing the walk, maybe Wantage, I don't know. So I think for the time being, at least, I will probably bid you good night. Morning. Well, I say morning, it's about 4 AM. Can't say I've slept particularly well. I never do I? One of those really unconvincing shots where I open the tent, because of course I would have had to have already opened the tent to put the camera outside. Anyway, I have the unenviable task of putting my socks back on, which are soaked through. I think if I've learnt anything from this outing is always bring a spare pair of socks. Tent held up fairly well. It was a bit of a breezy night, and rained quite a lot of it as well. The condensation actually hasn't been quite as bad as it had been on previous trips. I think partly because of that airflow from the wind. The inner compartment at least reasonably dry. I don't quite know how these socks got so bad, but look at that. That's pretty awful, isn't it? Well, that was home for the night. I think I made a good compromise with that spot. Had a bit of a view over there, but it was actually relatively discreet. Well, I suppose I'd better get on and pack up all this cold, wet tat. There's actually a little bit of a path here, so I wasn't even really trampling down the long grass. I was using this summer quilt. It's a big Agnes something or other. What's it called? King's Canyon. It was a little bit under-spec'd, to be honest. I don't think this has a thermal rating for it, but I've seen sort of third-party sites say it only really goes down to about 10 degrees. And I don't think the temperature last night went much below that, but with the wind chill and the fact everything was a bit damp, I was a little bit cold in the night. Possibly getting a bit more interesting over there, the sunrise. Hashtag leave no trace. As I said earlier, it was a bit of a path here, so other than a couple of temporarily flattened buttercups, you wouldn't know I've been there. And look, bit of a sunrise. Possibly a few minutes after the official moment of sunrise now. It's just gone 5 AM. I think it was due at just before 5 AM perhaps, but that looks like the sun over there, doesn't it? Isn't that nice? I do seem to find whenever I do spend the night out in the countryside, I invariably get treated to at least one. If the sunset's a disappointment, the sunrise is usually there to make up for it, or vice versa. Back on the Ridgeway, heading towards the sunrise. What a beguiling trek in this light. Even the stinging nettles look picturesque. There is a sarsen stone by the side of the Ridgeway here, and it even has a little bit of a path beaten to it. Well, it's tiny sarsen stone. I wonder if that was at one time standing, maybe? Lovely bird song this morning. Are you getting bored of these shots of the Ridgeway, the track and the sunrise yet? I think we're long past sunrise, but there's still nice colours and nice light in the sky. Lovely morning light bathing that beware of motorbikes jumping over cars sign, and I don't know if it's going to come out on the GoPro, but off to the right of that you can see the moon. On this very wide section of the Ridgeway now, it's like the dual carriageway. So this is Sparsholt Firs, which isn't much more of a feature on the Ridgeway other than a car park and where it crosses the road. I'm leaving the Ridgeway here. Behind me there you can see the final sign I'll be passing today. Morning ladies. That's the Devil's Punch Bowl down there. I'm sort of skirting around the perimeter of it. Quite an impressive land feature. Nice little barrow marked on the map here, just by the side of the footpath. More tramping across fields. Nice view from here though. These sort of the plains around Wantage laid out before me. I get the sense this footpath isn't used very often, having to wade through the undergrowth to get to the road. Well, I don't really much fancy walking down this road, but the footpath has run out. And it is long and straight and fairly clear on both sides, so hopefully I can see the cars coming. Turning into rather a nice day. Okay, that's a relief. I have left that road now. Was a bit busy. Now have a nice, hopefully nice, quiet track to take me the rest of the way into Wantage. This track is marked on the Ordnance Survey map as Green Road. We see quite a lot of those around the place. It usually means an ancient track. Here though, it's more of a brown road. So I like to think this green road I'm on might have been an old track that once linked the Ridgeway to Wantage. Part of it up there has probably been erased by a road or just lost in the fields. This is turning into a bit of a slog actually. The joie de vivre of that morning sunrise time walk along the Ridgeway has faded a bit, if I'm brutally honest. Now I just want to get into Wantage, see if I can find anywhere open for a fry-up. This has, in fairness, been quite a nice track, but I'm glad that the end is in sight. Slightly easier walking, hopefully, from here on pavements, maybe even if I'm lucky. I'm feeling a bit worn out, I don't mind telling you. I think the combination of the lack of sleep and the lack of breakfast is really taking its toll now. Entering Wantage now, can't be bothered to cross the road. Birthplace of Alfred the Great. Taking a surprisingly long time just to get through Wantage from the side I entered. Nice chalk stream it looks like. Well, I've definitely made it to Wantage now. Don't know if you can see. I'll perhaps put an overlay on. There's the statue of King Alfred behind me in the market square here. I think that's going to be it for this video. I think I'm going to sign off there. I'm going to try and get some breakfast and then figure out how I get home from there. Don't think you need to see that, but it's been a fun little adventure along the Ridgeway in a wild camp. Quite enjoyed that. So thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.